Hey, what's going on, guys? So last night I managed to catch the preview for The Flash on IMAX. I guess I'd give my quick thoughts on it. So for the most part, this is like a really good movie. However, it's one of those movies that's really flawed in the process. I guess the best way to describe it is that when it's actually doing the Flash-centric stuff, that's when the movie's actually really good. But the main problems with the movie is when it tries to set up James Gunn's new universe, because that's when the movie completely like falls off the rails. For the most part, the positives are, of course, Barry Allen, the prime Barry Allen, and Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton, for the most part, is basically the action star of this movie. Uh, he's the one that kind of holds this new team together during most of the movie, um, and they've actually upgraded like his fighting style because that's like stuff they couldn't do in the 90s. um, I guess Supergirl, for what she does do, is all right. um, I mean, I guess I don't really want to spoil anything, but yeah, for the most part it's all right. um, the action sequences with Batfleck is actually pretty good, although I'm not really a fan of that bat suit, but it does kind of mirror like an Easter egg that's already been spoiled in the trailers. Um, for the most part, this is more of a Crisis on Infinite Earth movie more than in a Flashpoint, so I really don't understand how they could advertise it as a Flashpoint movie. I guess just because of the time travel aspects. I guess, so the way that this movie kind of tries to explain it is that this isn't really an alternate timeline, but more of a convergence of timelines. Similar to how the Flash TV show played out and the crossovers on that show, where the TV show played more homage to the TV side of things. This movie actually played to more of the mainstream movies. Um, so I guess like the really negative aspects about this movie is more on the comedy side, um, and the CGI for the most part, because the CGI in this movie is actually horrendous. I mean, and it kind of plays into the aspect of the handling of this movie, of how it kept changing hands, rewrites and reshoots, and it actually shows in the final product. So I guess that kind of goes hand in hand of why the CGI is so bad in this movie. Uh, I guess like the first 15 minutes of this movie is kind of what gets the movie going, and there's just like these choppy sequences. I'm like for instance, there'd be like this set piece. You can tell that it's like a real location, but as soon as it cuts to like another angle, that's when it starts to get all cartoony, and it really does look like PS3 graphics with how rubbery and everything looks, and that's like constant throughout the movie. And sometimes there'll be like these weird scenes where Prime Earth Barry is talking to alternate timeline Barry, and then you can tell that's obviously not Ezra Miller, but they superimposed his face, and it just looks really awkward and weird. And for the most part, they kind of do that with the cameos in this movie. Uh, One of the biggest negative aspects of this movie is basically new timeline Barry is basically Beavis and Butthead that's high 24/7 with just stupid jokes, like laughter, and apparently he either smokes weed too much or is on mushrooms or something, but there's just like stuff that he says in this movie that doesn't make any sense. And then apparently he's the one with the powers the majority of the movie, which really isn't a spoiler because it's mostly in the trailers. But I guess kind of going back to like this editing and the handling of certain things, there'd be like a serious moment that kind of encompasses the severity of the danger in this movie, and then there's just like constant interruptions of humor. So it's like kind of like the director is doing his one thing, then you got the old WB execs doing their thing, and now you got James Gunn trying to insert his humor into this, which is more than obvious because if you've seen clips of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, there's stuff in that movie that kind of mirrors humor in this movie, and it kind of has the same punchline, so it's more than obvious where that stuff came from. Uh, I guess the ending is really ambiguous because it's played off more of a joke than an actual ending to a movie. But then the post-credit scene kind of contradicts the ending of the movie, which kind of sets up all the more logic gaps of how this is supposed to be the end of the Snyderverse, quote unquote, or more the DCEU into the new universe. And that begs the question as to what James Gunn is going to cherry pick what to use in his movies, which is more than obvious, is if he already had a hand in those characters, he's going to use them. What else can I talk about? Yeah, like, I guess one of the good aspects of this is it plays more into the canon of the Snyderverse, because, or the Snyder cut of Justice League, because there's events in that movie and action sequences in that movie that are referenced in this movie that don't happen in the Justice League version. Sort of like the time travel aspect, because that was the big ending of the Snyder cut, and that's referenced in this movie. And then I guess for the most part, when it's actually a Flash movie, it's actually really good, but like trying to expand the wider whole, that's where the movie falls apart. But for the most part, like, the best parts of the movie are actually the Michael Keaton action sequences and the Flash point, which is more of a Crisis on Infinite Earth kind of thing. Is that those are the best parts. But yeah, for the most part, I really enjoyed it, but it's a really flawed movie that leaves a lot of questions still lingering. But for the most part, yeah, it was a good movie. So if you guys have seen it, let me know what you think. Take it easy, guys.